I don't remember really how long ago it was, 16, 17 years, quite a while ago now. I gave a keynote address to a distributor conference of a vision supplier, uh, and it was interesting concept. I think the main keynote was the author of a book on leadership or something like that, kind of forgettable topic in his sense. But what I did was I got up and I was talking about convergence of technologies and so on. And I lugged all my stuff that in the old days I used to have to travel with. And I pulled up my Palm Pilot that I took notes on and had contact database. Remember the personal information manager stuff? And I had a my laptop, and I can't remember. I had some other electronic device that I carried with me. And of course, back in those days, you had to carry, a briefcase full of paper files because still everything was paper. And I said, one of these days, all this stuff is going to be combined, and I'll just have one little device, and I'll be able to I can write my blog posts and my articles and talk on the phone. Oh yeah, I had my little Nokia cell phone. That was the other electronic device. So I had all this stuff I had to carry around, and I said, this is all going to be converged someday, and it's going to be so much neater and more interesting and easier to travel. And and lo and behold, it didn't take. It was only a few years later that the iPhone came out, and it converged. And I went through a number of iterations. I did a trio for a while. That was the Palm and the phone, and then eventually went to iPhones, and I've been on iPhones ever since. And it's all in one device. And so, that's a little bit how technology converged, and it's been fantastic. Hey, this is Gary. This is Gary on manufacturing, back for another of my occasional meandering thoughts. And this podcast is brought to you from is my usual sponsor, and who I greatly appreciate. Uh, this is supported by inductive automation. Discover a whole new view with Ignition 8 by Inductive Automation, packed with features for the modern control system like unlimited licensing, high-powered tags, and a mobile-first flexible design environment for all devices. Ignition 8 supports enterprises of any size. See all Ignition has to offer at inductiveautomation.com. What kind of brought this thought up and brought me back to my that keynote I gave a long time ago was a conversation that I had with Tom Bradicich, known as Dr. Tom, inside the walls of Hewlett Packard Enterprise (HPE), where he is now vice president in charge of Hewlett Packard Labs and an HPE fellow. And he had worked on Internet of Things, so to speak, and we were supposed to talk at Hanover Messe, well, over the digital platform of Hanover Messe, but things happened and we had to postpone it, and we just caught up yesterday, as a matter of fact, from when I'm recording this. And so I wanted to talk about what's happening at HPE. And Tom likes to use the analogy, like I used way back when, of a cell phone. And when he gets up to give a talk about this sort of stuff, he'll pull a cell phone out and talk about the converged device, how you can have a GPS and a cellular antenna, cell phone, and computer and calendar and all of it all in one nice little device. And that's what he started to work on. I first met Tom at National Instruments, where he came over there from IBM, where he had done product development, research and development on a number of products there in the servers and in laptops. Came to NI. That was a period of time when NI was on the process of moving from a small entrepreneurial company toward more of a corporate outlook. And they had brought in a new vice president or senior vice president, I don't know what title, of R&D, and his job had been to move moved to a distributed R&D setup instead of having everything in one place in Austin, Texas. And I forget his name, but his job, and which he successfully did, was to set up R&D centers in a couple of other global locations. And it's kind of an interesting way to go. It's kind of like I worked one time when I imported, and I was like head engineer in the U.S. and the main engineering and development and manufacturing was done in Japan. And I'd come up with questions and problems and stuff I had to do for making UL standard or whatever. And back in those days, I'd send a fax and they'd work on it while I went home to bed. And then when I got up in the morning and came to work, I'd have answers from Japan. So we could like work around the clock. And that's what this man did from IBM at NI, and he's long gone now and moved on. IT people moving into the OT world is a culture shock, and I think Dr. Tom had that when he went to NI. When I talked to him, he was talking about big analog data, BAD, and recognizing and taking some of these IT concepts into the world of NI, which was at the time, and this is maybe 7 or 8 years ago, I'm not 100% sure, but it was kind of a new concept. They had a lot of data. I mean, OT companies generated tons of data. Usually it was for things like control. And I'm controlling a process or for lab testing, and I did a lot of test equipment and so on. And so that's where all that data went. But now we know that data is useful in the business systems and in business decision making and a lot of other things, and it's just very important for the company as a whole. We need to think much more broadly. And when I first met Tom at NI, that's what he was working on there. Got an opportunity to move to Hewlett Packard, which split and is now he's with the HPE part, which is really, really, really high-end servers and compute platforms and storage and so on. And what he did there originally was set up a converged IoT uh, thing called Edgeline, and he was general manager, so he developed it and had to sell it. And that's where I first got affiliated. I had been working with some other IT companies on their IoT devices, and they kind of like didn't have the same vision. There was a vision, sort of, but it wasn't as complete a vision. And Tom brought his vision to the Hewlett Packard Enterprise, and the converged IoT platform called Edgeline is kind of like instead of a PC and a little hardened box that you put out at the edge of the network and manufacturing, this was more of a high-end compute platform, a server in a box, and there were examples of early ones of those on offshore oil rigs. And I saw, in fact, I visited a couple of times a refinery that had set up one of these edge lines as the heart of an overall process of not necessarily controlling the process, but all the data coming into it and so on. And so we're talking. So we're going back through all that, and what he was doing with HPE Labs right now is working on the software end of that whole converged thing. And we could kind of call it taking um, taking the converged platform, the converged or hybrid servers and IT into um, into the edge, into the actual plant floor, if you will, and so that's what he's been working on, and HPE has a lot of that. I haven't had an application update for a little while on that, but HPE is very much has a team and so on working with manufacturing and manufacturing companies. Um, I guess I don't want to mention any companies. I don't know what they're approved to talk about, which companies they work with, but there are some big ones that they work with. And Tom says that this sort of forces. Let me go back and visit a term I hate. because it's so old and so meaningless anymore. IT OT convergence, and actually the convergence is less. I'm not sure what people used to talk about, or maybe they thought that they'd break the silos and there'd only be one team and it'd be an IT OT team or even whatever. But what really happens, he says that the edge with the IT at the edge, which is accessible by the OT people because it's connected to all the OT stuff, um, forces this IT/OT convergence where the line of business people need to talk to the CIO's people, and they need to work together, and they can. And usually, it's an organizational. In my experience, especially, it's an organizational problem where where it's who controls what, and I'm afraid they'll control it, and I'm afraid they'll control it, and they're afraid I'll control it, and all that kind of stuff. And usually, once we get the technologies down, and it becomes a little easier to use at the application level, we can get rid of some of those silos and some of that control thinking, and organizational control and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, it was an interesting conversation. So Tom was talking about Edge as a service. He did the last Discover, which is the HPE Big User Group Conference, which was done remotely, of course, last summer. He said his at the time, his session on Edge as a Service was the most watched session at Discover. I know I watched it, and I reported a little bit about it on my blog, and you can go back and search for HPE Discover and find that stuff. And it's kind of like bringing, Edge, software as a service is a data center application, and Edge as a service gets us down to the level of where the plant line of business people, plant engineering people, and so on can work with that device, and it connects directly to the IT world, so that we not only can use it to run a plant, but we can do business decisions and feed our business applications as well. Um, just checking my notes to see if I have any more things coming out of that. But that was kind of the gist of my conversation and a little background with HPE. Uh, they have gone farther than the competitors that I've talked to. In fact, some of the competitors I don't even hardly talk with anymore. The Internet of Things kind of went past. They weren't selling enough boxes to make the business managers happy. And in some cases, it was all about selling boxes, but that's a mistake. And I tried to say, it's not all IoT isn't all about predictive maintenance. People don't really understand what maintenance is if they just think, oh, I'll just throw a little bit of predictive analytics into one of these edge devices, and then everything will be fantastic. No, predictive maintenance or maintenance is a lot more than just predictive. There's prescriptive and there's condition based, and and you need a whole great big system of professionals to do reliability and maintenance, and we feed it. That's part of what we do, but it's not the end all of everything, and uh, and it's more than just Internet of Things. It's Internet of Things means I'm connecting all these stuff to a compute platform, and I can take a lot of that as a service out of the cloud, so I don't have the bandwidth problems and the lag time of feeding stuff to a cloud and whatever. So we've got this hybrid thing where we've got some stuff in the cloud, some stuff at the edge. The edge is getting more powerful. HPE has been working on that quite a bit, and I keep looking for other people to catch up. I don't know. A couple of other companies have stuff coming up I'll be listening to in the next month, and we'll see what happens there. At any rate, a little catch up with Tom Bradicich of Hewlett Packard Enterprise. At Tom Bradicich, PhD, is his Twitter handle, Bradicich. I think that was it off the top of my head. And you can always follow that and follow whatever else I'm writing about on connected manufacturing, which is what I named my blog a long time ago now, 2013, the Manufacturing Connection, because I already knew we were going to be talking about connections. But thanks for listening. Gary, have a good day. And as always, this podcast is brought to you with support from Inductive Automation. Discover a whole new view with Ignition 8 by Inductive Automation, packed with features for the modern control system like unlimited licensing, high-powered tags, and a mobile-first flexible design environment for all devices. Ignition 8 supports enterprises of any size. See all Ignition 8 has to offer at inductiveautomation.com. Thanks. Have a good day. Stay safe and enjoy life.